At their core, dragons represent fire. From their infernal breath to the scarlet scales present among most cultural depictions, most are said to inhabit volcanoes and possess temperaments as hot as the fire they represent. Perhaps this is why the second most popular vision for the dragon is its direct opposite, ice. A match made in heaven, there is no doubt that no duo in fantasy is as perfect as that of ice and fire. That got me thinking, if dragons breathe fire, thus can create external warmth from an internal source, they would be uncontested in the polar wastes of any fantasy world. Today, let me take you on an expedition through the northern ice of my setting, the Dragonslayer Codex, where we will explore a polar ecology, the people who live there, and, most importantly, the dragon who lords above it all. This tale begins with snow. Far north there lies a land sealed in glaciers, a still and near tranquil setting at first glance, as if one were looking at the peacefulness of a grave. The hustle-bustle of the forests and grasslands rings in our memory as our fingers turn numb, but we came here to explore, and that we will do. Before arriving here, every precaution had to be made, from bundles of clothes to ice picks and even weaponry. You know, the usual Dragonslayer fare. It is not all wasteland, however. Cresting a translucent boulder of ice and barely visible through the flurries ahead lies a mountain of bark, a bastion of wood, the God Tree. Such an extreme evergreen, it develops a pyramid-like trunk which exerts its own weight towards its core. This constant pressure generates moderate heat from within, enabling the living part of the plant to endure even the bleakest winter. Ground ice near the base of its roots melts into slush from this same warmth, which then feeds the plant. God Tree seeds are found within the core as well, expelled through the roots and grow connected to the parent, fed its nutrients until it can support its own needs. Cooperative survival even applies to a plant in a place like this. Approaching the colossal tree is a pack of snow scuttlers. They run for cover within a tangle of roots. These rodents are the backbone of this ecosystem, existing in the thousands over a single tree alone. They live fast and die young, eaten by any creature that can catch them, such as the Arctic ichneumon. This animal comes from a line of large tanareks, most of whom eat dragon hatchlings or, in some cases, adult dragons themselves. The Arctic species has no such appetite. Being the smallest of their kind, it busies itself with snow scuttlers and burrows instead. As we walk beneath the arcs of roots that nearly resemble architecture themselves, you hear a scraping sound. It is a frost digger chewing into the thick dermal layers of the God Tree, both for food and to excavate a hollow for itself. For the warmth emanating from these trees makes them a tempting habitat for polar animals, and a cornerstone species in this environment. As you muse over the importance of the tree, the frost digger is pierced by a spear-like yellow beak. The blue intimidator, a tall bird named for its unusual stance of looking to the sky while eyeing downwards for prey. It looks to us, expecting to fight for its meal. Our rations serve us well enough, so we depart. Our guide is a mountain of a man, draped in robes and covered in a fine layer of fur. Primal as he may seem, the man spoke with an eloquence seldom seen among travelers. He is a hinterman, belonging to a proud nation that calls this frozen land its home. Hintermen greatly resemble the giants that humanity descends from, and this is due to their frigid home. To adapt, their ancestors shed some of the neotenic traits that separates modern humans from their giant kin. Bergman's rule states that, generally, animals found within colder climates are larger than those not, and in pursuit of this, the hinterman redeveloped the fur, sagittal crest, and taller size compared to other human groups. He leads us to a porthole-like door carved into one of the trunks of the God Tree, leading us inside. Hintermen take advantage of the tree's resources and heat to build their homes, which are lavishly decorated with fine wools and engravings. We are told that there exists massive underground halls beneath the trees, but you blurt out and ask about the dragons of the region instead. Smiling, the large man pulls out a thick book and places it on the table. Here's what he had to say about the Hull Breaker. These dragons are huge, being one of the largest known. Their scales glimmer a half-iridescent white, while their heads and tail spines are dark. Their necks are heavy and tall, with pressure-absorbing vertebrae enwrapped in a sheath of muscle that makes even a god jealous. The head itself is crowned by a tall, single horn. Built like a hammer, it is used to tap glaciers and ice sheets in search of its weakest point, which is then shattered by a few blows from its massive, club-like arms. The animal's entire physique is built around these clubs, from its sloped posture to its lifestyle of pummeling rivals into pulp. Interestingly, there are still wings tucked behind those clubs, but in grown adults they are useless in flight, serving only to aid in swimming when the need arises, such as while feeding. Hull breakers crack ice for a plethora of reasons, from marking territory to retrieving the bodies of sea animals encased in it from past tragedies. In leaner times, they are known to shatter sea ice and shovel up the bounty of invertebrate animals crowding the seafloor. This behavior is taken advantage of by other animals. The pronged beast is a herding proto-sirenian, a early type of manatee now extinct on our Earth, that waits for the dragon to crack the ice before diving in and feasting on the now available resource. While some of these pronged beasts are actually eaten and caught by the hull breaker if they get too close, the abundant food makes this risk worthwhile. On the underside of the ice, the hern relies on the dragon's ice breaking to create air holes for it to breathe. Hern are seal-like in appearance, but are actually a type of whale that retained the legs of its ancestors, existing in a niche centered around cracking shelled animals with its strong jaw. Hull breakers are not aquatic animals, despite their feeding habits, and make for slow swimmers. This habit of feeding on sea ice is what granted the animal its name. Early sailing expeditions into the North Ice followed the open channels created by the dragon, unbeknownst to them. At its end, the vessel met with the beast, who responded to this foreign object by punching a hole clean through its hull, perceiving it as a challenger. And this isn't their only conflict with humans. Dragons this large usually ignore people at full size, yet adolescent hullbreakers go through a phase called gunning. A gunning dragon will prime its arms for durability by repeatedly tearing and swiftly healing its arm muscles, tendons, and bones. Their metabolic rate speeds up, and they require magnitude more food than usual. This leads to desperation and conflict. Gunning hull breakers will attempt to burst open the gates of an undercity to devour the people within. Spears and arrows shatter while in contact with their armored hide, so the hinterman developed an interesting means of defense: sound. An artistic folk, hintermen are fond of opera and performing arts. Their booming voices and massive drums, they discovered, are weapons themselves. By channeling these performances into a single, massive amplifier, they create a wave of sound that makes even the mighty hull breakers' ears bleed. A few minutes of exposure is usually enough to drive off a full-grown dragon. These worm songs, as they are now called, are written and performed exclusively for dragon attack and have a deep-seated place in the culture. They also have a relationship with another creature, the glacier giant, who has a tendency to protect them. A giant named Hrum actually slew a young adult hullbreaker in defense of a small outpost, cementing him in legend. The glacier giant and Hrum himself will also receive a video in the future. Winter is harsh in this land. Some animals migrate, some tough it out, and others sleep. The hullbreaker hibernates. In its ice cave of a lair, the dragon caves in the entrance and lies in a nest of various brambles and twigs recovered the week before. Igniting the nest with its fire breath, it lies in the bonfire and falls asleep. The initial flames warmed the sealed cave enough to keep the dragon alive, and its heated, fiery exhalation maintains humidity. Moss, lichen, and various small plants grow in this winter oasis, sometimes on the dragon's skin itself, giving it a greenish hue. Small animals like the snow scuttler then survive by feeding on these plants within the cave. A hibernating hullbreaker ensures the survival of many small animals and plants by its presence alone. During this time, it incubates an egg, which hatches as spring arrives. The adult carries its young within skin folds underneath its wings, keeping it warm and safe in a de facto pouch. To leave its lair, it will punch the rubble, sealing the entrance, the thunderous sounds of which mark the official springtime to the hinterman, much like a groundhog's shadow does on Earth. A dragon this large is sure to wake up hungry, especially with another mouth to feed. Should you find yourself before one, please note some strengths and weaknesses. Strengths. Its power. Full-grown dragons can shatter icebergs. A human body is short work. Size. Full-grown adults are immune to most weapons and can trample a team by complete accident. Aggression. While the adults ignore humans at their adult size, the gunning adolescents will seek out targets to take their frustration out on. Weaknesses. Size again. It is easy to escape from a hullbreaker if ample coverage is nearby. And sound. Sensitive hearing makes sound-based weaponry ideal against them. They are also a rare species and keep each other in check via territorial disputes. In many ways, they are their worst enemy. A dragon of this stature can keep foes away by its mere presence. Hullbreakers have been known to approach beached sea monsters and claim the carcass with minimal fuss. This beast is one of the true powerhouses of this world and claimed the North with their splendor. Thank you to my patrons for supporting this channel and my art. I could not do this without you. An additional thanks to the top patrons listed here. You guys rock. See you in the next video.